Hello and welcome to the IRS Rail webinar session on how can we minimize the impact of incidents on rail operators and infrastructure owners, produced by the International Railway Summit in association with Cognify. I'm Joel Somura, the Managing Director of IRITS Events, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session. So at the last count, we had over 140 people from 47 countries registered for today. Welcome to those of you attending our webinar program for the first time, and welcome back if you've joined us before. Just a quick reminder to the speakers, if you could mute your mics, please, while you, until it's your turn to speak. Thank you very much. Yes, we're talking about how can we minimize the impact of incidents on rail operators and infrastructure owners. Despite improvements in safety, technology, and better understanding of human factors, rail incidents continue to happen worldwide, and they're causing frequent disruptions and delays, and sometimes sadly injuries and deaths. While it's important to work on reducing incidents, it's equally important to recognize that incidents do happen and be prepared to react quickly and effectively to reduce the impacts of incidents. Today's debate will explore best practices, technologies, and strategies to better handle rail incidents. I'm delighted to have the support of leading experts as speakers with us today. In particular, we're grateful for the support from Cognify, which allows us to provide this important debate for anyone to watch for free. One of Cognify's key offerings is incident management system that allows rail operators and infrastructure managers to coordinate real-time response across their organization. So I look forward to learning about Cognify's expertise on incident handling from their strategic account manager, Mark Grisdale, shortly. I'm equally grateful to Frederick Hein from the International Union of Railways, UIC, Nicolas Barjules from Eurostar, and Anne Rosenbaum from ProRail for sharing their expertise with us today. This is an interactive session. You're invited to participate proactively in the discussion. So the audience members will see a chat section where you're welcome to send messages, send feedback, and share your reaction with other audience members. We have a Q&A section where you'll be able to send in questions and to that. So you'd like Paolo to ask the speakers during the panel discussion. You'll be able to also vote other audience members' questions there as well. We have 4 polls this morning and proposed by the speakers. So we'll be asking the audience members what you think about certain issues. And finally, we have the handouts. So the presentations from the speakers are available in the handout section for you to download. And finally, at the end of the webinar, if you're good enough to stay until the end, you'll see the a pop-up to ask for your opinion, your feedback. We have an evaluation form. If you miss that, you'll also receive an email to provide evaluation. So this is very important for us to improve our webinar program. So do complete that for us. We are tweeting live during this webinar. You can follow us at Rail Summit, and please use our hashtag IRS Rail Webinars. If you enjoyed the session, do continue the debate on Twitter and LinkedIn. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our guide for today, Paolo Guglielminetti. If you've joined us before, you may be familiar with Paolo because he's moderated a number of our webinar sessions for us. Paolo has over 20 years of experience in transport planning, economics, and operation. His current projects involve rail digitalization in the 2 key areas of enhancing rail network operation and improving customer experience. So I'm delighted to have you back with us, Paolo, for today's debate on how can we minimize the impact of incidents on rail operators and infrastructure owners. So Paolo, over to you.
Thanks, Jules. Thanks to IRS and Cognify to gather us together this morning for a very important topic of discussion in railways and also across all the users and stakeholders that are involved in the rail business. Why is important, you have already mentioned. I would like to add a few points. It's true that disruption and incidents are part of the railway business since the railway existed. But now, especially in the last years, is becoming even more important. Why this is the case? First, because we have much more complex environment and reasons for disruption. We have more stakeholders involved. We have, for instance, in Europe, the fragmentation of the sector with the open access system, having more than one operator running on railways, so that any incident should be communicated and organized with respect to the needs of different kind of railway companies. But we have also a higher expectation from the users. They know that more data are available. They know that new tools are available, and we will discuss about that, especially in the MAR presentation. So they expect the railways will be more performant in dealing with that. And also regulators are expecting that the right of user will be respected when incident will take place. So that's why it's important. It's becoming even more important in the last period. And to start our discussion, I propose to show our first poll. As Jules mentioned, we have polls and also Q&A to interact. We would like to know, now the first poll is the one that was introducing the first presentation. We are asking what are the best approaches to handle sensitive data, like personal, confidential, commercial, or IP protected data.
I think Paolo's screen is frozen, so maybe if I can read out those questions for the audience. So we're asking, I think it's on your screen as well, in terms of handling the sensitive data that Paolo was just talking about, that are of highest operational interest for rail operators and infrastructure managers, what are the most important aspects? And this is, I believe this is multiple answer questions. So you can choose the ones that you think are most important.
So far.
Is it compliance with the regulations, the use of virtuous tools, or is it anonymization, or is it consent, getting the right 49. Consent from the data owner?
So I think we can close it here. 51, perfect. So the well distributed across the audience, we have 31 people considering compliance, 31% considering compliance the best way, and 29% consent from the data owner, followed by anonymization, 26%, and virtuous tool, 14%. So thank you for replying. And now I would like to introduce our first speaker, Frederick Hein. He's the Head of Operation and Safety in International Union of Railways, UIC. Frederick has joined UIC with this position in July 2020. But before, he has held many senior positions within the rail safety and operation, with a long career in SNCF, Eurostar, French National Safety Agency, and the Réseau Ferré de France, that was the infrastructure manager, now becoming SNCF Réseau. And also a variety of roles at Eurotunnel before, when the tunnel was in construction, and then started the operation. Frederick, I hand over to you for your presentation.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you for this introduction. So, yes, on the UIC organization, I would like to introduce the approach which is leading to making improvements at the service of operation performance. So what I want to explain here is in the UIC organization, we have decided that I would be leading the new department, which is called Operations and Safety, knowing that we consider safety at the service of operational excellence. So this is why the safety approach that I'm going to describe just afterwards is a bit a new challenge for the I would say members of UIC to get this new approach oriented to the customer, of course, in the frame of competition, but as well with the new objectives which are now embedded within the worldwide, like the sustainability and the interoperability of railway operations. So, as a nutshell, of course, my department, Operations and Safety UIC, is connected with every department which is composing the passenger activities and the freight activities. And of course, Operation and Safety will encompass with all processes, starting from the service design until the full return of experience. So, as an introduction, of course, everybody knows that the railway, but not only the railway, the world is becoming more and more digitalized, and the fourth industrial revolution is coming to the railway. And we are going to come from a digital world to integrated mobility regarding the railway activities. So we all know this is going to come on board in the railway organization. So knowing that, we must shift a bit with what I was introducing, the new deal, a new way for making safety at the service of the overall performance of railway. And as Paolo was saying, more and more today, in front of the objectives, we have to make sure that the organization is robust and we get some full control, or as much as possible, the control of safety and performance of operations. Thanks to the digitalization of the railway activities, it should improve, but we will have to anyway make and face the unknown which are facing the railway environments. And we have typical examples recently, for example, for the pandemic. For the pandemic, the lesson number one was that it was important that the UIC coordinates all activities from railway operators and infrastructure manager to ensure that we share the best practices in order to face with this top priority number one, which is health and safety of people, or health and safety of the workforce, in order to maintain the railway activities. And it's the same for anything which is related with the security, or even more the cyber security, or even more the climate changes consequences. So more and more we see that in the organization, in order to be safe, we have to think about crisis and risk typology to be oriented with new planning methodology. And of course, data has to be used as a resource for this safety and operations. So there is no more, I would say, dedicated safety data. There is some data which is a resource in order to improve the quality and the performance of railway. So this is why in the UIC organization, we are going forward an integrated safety approach, which is shown here at the right top, taking into consideration that the performance and safety operations are dealing with environment, security, cyber, health and safety, and fire. But with the foundations which are now coming into the railway, it means the fundamentals have to be, of course, first, safety, but secondly, punctuality and sustainability and interoperability are making the work in order to achieve with a kind of operational or optimized excellence of operations within the railway, in order to deliver more capacity, in order to deliver more trains on time, in order to make the climate change dealing like energy saving, and making as well a greater flexibility in the railway organization in order to be able to face the unknown. So this is why the approach would be that, of course, more and more we will deal with the compliance, I would say, activities. It means to develop some technical barriers, some procedures, and some expertise. But in the meantime, within the railway environment, we need to adapt in order to be able to face the unknown. So it means we have to invest in the skills, in the learning abilities, and the adaptation of the railway system. So this is why, as a nutshell, what I would like to share is what are going to be the key activities of UIC in the next future years regarding the development of this operation and safety new deal. Of course, we will work on the functional organization of railway operations and traffic control center, because this is I would say central point, making so that the railway operations are optimized from the planning and from the very long-term planning area, but till the quality of real-time operations. And of course, in order to have this functional optimized organization of railway traffic control center, it means the training of staff in there needs to be addressed so that they are more and more on the systemic approach, as I was explaining before, with the integrated safety approach. In parallel with that, we will run some use cases. Thanks to the 5G, we are going to see what top use cases has to be taken into account in order to develop the facility for railway to get some data valuable coming from the video or from the audio or from the sensors which are equipping the railway system. We will try to build up some digital platforms so that interoperability and safety data are exchanged in a better way, in an optimized way, in between railway undertakings and infrastructure managers, including as well external actors, because of course, more and more the railway is interacting with external from the railway. So it means that some other actors who are making sometimes aggressions to the railway environment needs to be considered. Of course, we will develop some simulation tools, for example, for training purposes, but as well for design purposes of redesign railway activities. And in parallel to that, and this is where we are leading with the safety, the digitalization should lead us to develop some new methods for making internationalization of demonstration or certification. So this is why here, as I was saying before, data is not so much safety data, but all data will be optimized so that these safety demonstrations do address with all the matters which are included in the integrated safety and compliant with the requirements regarding safety like cybersecurity, like environment, like interoperability. So that was briefly the, I would say, activities of UIC regarding the improvement of resilience of the railway system in front of the aggressions. Thank you for having listened to me.
Thanks, Frederick. Thanks also for perfectly respecting the timing, given leaving a couple of minutes for the next speaker. So now I would like to introduce Nicolas Bargel, who is Business Continuity Manager in Eurostar. Nicolas has a significant, really international operation background. He first worked as the French infrastructure manager, dealing with capacity and slot allocation. Then he joined the open access railway undertaking Stello, French-Italian company that had to set up the international services between France and Italy. And now he's working for Eurostar in the management of operation, performance, and in particular in business continuity. Nicolas, we have now the second poll, and then I will hand over to you. So our second poll for the audience is, how do you see railway incident management? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you, Paolo. My colleagues, if you can show the poll again. I think it's disappeared.
So, yeah. I do not see the poll. Okay. How do you see railway incident management evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? Large use of automation replacing human making is the first possibility. Widespread diffusion of Internet of Things supporting human decision, making with more reliable and extensive information on asset status, traffic condition, etc. Or it would be business as usual with regulatory framework imposing the current practices and allocation of responsibility. Or business as usual because railway is very resilient to transformation, especially in safety-related areas. So you have now 5 seconds again to submit your answer. Okay, a couple of seconds and then we can close it. Thank you. So we can see much more, let's say, clear view of the audience. 61% answer widespread diffusion of IoT as the most likely development, but 23 consider the larger use of automation will replace human decision. Very few, let's say, things that either regulation 12% or business or resilience 5% will make the picture remaining the same as we know now. So business as usual. Thanks a lot for the audience. And now, Nicolas, I already introduced you. Nicolas, as I say, is business continuity manager in Eurostar. You have you can now present your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Paolo, for this introduction. Perhaps I'll provide you with an operational day-to-day perspective about how Eurostar is managing disruption. To begin with, even if several of you are certainly familiar with Eurostar, what makes us a bit specific and sometimes fragile in terms of disruption management is, first, we are international. We speak 3 languages, we operate over 4 countries, and on 5 infrastructures. So yeah, a train from London to Amsterdam in 4 hours is traveling through 5 infrastructures. We link EU and UK, so that implies some border checks before departure. Passengers clear all the controls at the departing station, meaning that we may have some weaknesses there, as there could be some issues sometimes with throughput and with passenger check-in. We are traveling through the Channel Tunnel. This is an exceptional infrastructure, a tunnel 50 kilometers long, where the major risk actually is fire. So pretty many things for us revolve around fire protection, from crew staffing to training and rolling stock, with some sensitive areas there. We are open access. That means that we are competing with airlines for premium markets, mainly between the North European capitals. And nevertheless, our goal is to offer the best possible seamless experience to the customers, putting Paris, Brussels, and Amsterdam at a few hours from London. We're not that big operator, I have to say. We have 50 trains a day in normal time, except COVID, of course. And we have 2 series of rolling stock, making a total of 25 sets, meaning that we are a relatively tiny player afterwards. More specifically about management of disruption, perhaps the first question is to define what an incident is, what a disruption is. And there may be as many answers as rail operators and infrastructure managers. At Eurostar, we define our own metrics for that, our own KPIs. What we are measuring on a day-to-day basis is trains arriving 5 minutes late or more, and train arriving 15 minutes late or more, because we tend to find that this matches quite well the influence over passenger satisfaction, about the promoter score that passengers tend to rate us after the travel. And yes, at the At the extreme, there's background noise. So all those small little delays, which may not be linked to something very straightforward, to a single cause sometimes, which are non-performance because they tend to be a little bit over the radar. Nevertheless, we have to work on that as this may be the first leverage for rail quality. And then on the other side, we have the T15, so significant events. Usually they tend to be attributed to a single cause. So that's the both metrics we have. The background noise, as you can see, I put some figures regarding 2019, which was the last normal year for Eurostar. And actually, we have only 3 trains out of 4 arriving less than 5 minutes late. So that means 1 train out of 4 has to be worked upon. There's no single answer to improve quality, but what we are doing is that we are ensuring that trains depart on time. It may seem a bit obvious, but maybe not so much at the end. The fact is that when a train departs on time, its likelihood to be in the T5 is 10 points more at 85%. So this is all about working on the upstream flows, so train preparation, catering, passenger taking, ensuring we have sufficient turnarounds and well-planned operations. And then, as I said, we have the more significant events, all the unexpected, which can sometimes happen. What we tend to find out is that responsibilities for bigger delay are quite shared between infrastructure managers and rail operators. And we may not have as an operator control over everything. But what we have to ensure, what we have to guarantee where we are committing is to provide live information to the passengers. They tend to accept our passengers that sometimes we are not running on time. We may have some glitches in the systems here and there, but what they definitely want is information. This is a right for passengers since Directive EU 2021-782. And this is also something natural, something embedded in our governance. We have reset a few years ago the control room to provide a comprehensive live view on operations, and out of its 6 daily roles, 2 are dedicated, 1 to internal, the other to external information. Frederick spoke about digitalization earlier. This is very true for us as well. We are pushing information not only through the conventional channels, through station and onboard announcements, but also through an app which had a module design for that. And we are also developing a disruption improvement program to improve continuous improvement and make the best use of new technologies. So basically, what we want to offer is transparent information and all the useful devices so that a customer can, for instance, exchange his ticket on its own if a train is delayed and has the feeling that he can control the situation. So what we want to provide is live, useful, and reliable information. This also comes through crew training. We encourage them to do some storytelling on board, which is fine. They all want to describe and explain situations so that it's a bit more human sometimes. And then things can go really, really wrong. We can have some line closures, for instance, and we are also reading some even worse cases, even this never happened at Eurostar. This is where the key is hope for the best and plan for the worst. And the pillars for that are that first, we have a 3-level command structure, so bronze, silver, and gold. Bronze is the operational teams. Silver are all the departmental on calls. They can be triggered when situation dictates, reinforcing the operational teams. And then we have the gold command, which is basically a major incident coordinator reporting directly to Eurostar CEO. Second pillar is that we do have a bunch of pre-written scenarios so that whenever it's possible, we provide some guidelines to the crisis command teams. Some of them are directly related to operational incidents. What to do if we have the loss of a station, what to do if your tunnel is closed for whatever reason. And some others are much more general. Loss of IT would be one of them. Should you be losing your IT tools, it can be a major widespread disruption really soon, actually. And that very much echoes to what Frederick said before about the extended vision of safety. Another pillar is that when you have so many people being on call in a crisis structure, you have to provide them with training. This is why we are having some regular tabletop exercises so that everyone is familiar with the procedures and can have some very much added value when it becomes embedded in the crisis command structure. We also have 2 volunteering programs across the business. We are a rail operator first, so when things go wrong, we have to focus on customers, which is why we have many volunteers able to help and support station operations, especially when things go wrong and when our station colleagues are overwhelmed. And regarding performance disruption management, this is very much a joint approach between ARUs and IAMs. You know that in Europe, especially, we have somewhat disintegrated system, if I can say, between operator and infrastructure manager. And it's all about trying to find some common intelligence to bring the best value. So timetabling is a good example of that. This has to be designed jointly. Incident analysis is another example where we are working closely with the IAMs. We had incidents in the past in playing some ETCS issues, comms issues between the RBC and the infrastructure and the modems on board. Same can be said about pantograph overline issues where we have to make investigations together. And we do have a frame now, the performance scheme imposed by EU directives, which make us responsible for creating delays. And last but not least, it's all about global warming as well. Question is how we are building some more robust operations in the future in terms of resilience to snow, to warm weather, to rains, as we saw this summer with our Belgian and German colleagues. And this is very much where we have to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. It's time for our third poll before introducing the third speaker. So what is the biggest obstacle to more effective incident management in railways? The fragmentation of internal responsibilities in the sector as a whole. Nicolas just discussed about this disintegration of the sector. Second possibility is technology supporting incident management not known or not available or not well developed. And the third possibility is excessive focus on compliance rather than on customer service. Please submit your answer. We have 5 seconds now to deal with that. Answers are coming, so a few seconds more. It seems there are a bit of tie between the first and the second one. And now a clearer path is showing, so we can now close it. And we have 46% that consider the fragmentation of internal responsibilities and in the sector is the biggest obstacle. The technology not available for supporting incident management, not known or not available or not developed, 33%. And the excessive focus on compliance just taking 19%. So it's very clear, let's say, order of or ranking between the different options we have proposed. So now we move to the third speaker, Anne Rosenbaum. She's team management in the rail control room of ProRail. She worked several years in Air France KLM, 1 year ago, she switched to an operational role at ProRail with the responsibility that all the incidents in the Dutch network are solved as quickly as possible to minimize the impact for passenger and cargo. And since April, she's the team manager of the Operational Control Center Rail. Anne, hand over to you. Is Anne online?
I think Anne is trying to join us. I can see that she's there. There may be some technical glitches.
Okay.
So I suggest that perhaps we we move on to Mark first, and then hopefully Anne can join us.
Shall we also do the fourth poll
yes,
first?
let's do the fourth poll first, and then if Anne isn't available, then we'll move on to Mark. Let's do that. Okay. Oh, I think Anne's joined us.
No.
Oh.
No, let's show the fourth poll meanwhile.
Yes, talking about incident handling. I think
exactly.
Yes, let's go for the fourth one.
To what extent have you used incident management technology to reduce impacts in your organization? Have you extensively invested in incident management technology? Have done some investment in incident management technology? Are you considering investment in incident management technology, or you have not invested in incident management technology? Please provide your answer. We'll let a few seconds more. Of course, this question is more relevant for the one that have direct railway operation responsibility, but we see several responses coming. So,
while we wait for the responses to come in, can I remind the audience members that if you have any questions to any of the speakers, do send in your questions in the Q&A section. A few people have already sent in questions, and you can vote for those questions if you like them to be asked and answered. If you have any questions, do please send in your questions in the Q&A section.
Thank you, Jules, to remind that. So I think we can now close the fourth poll. We have the largest number of answers is just considering the investments, 40%. We have then 29% of responses of people having done some investments. Then 17% no investments and 50% extensive investments. So the extreme situation have more or less the same number of answers. So Jules, if I'm right, I will hand over now to Mark.
Yes, let's Mark, if you're ready, let's come to you first.
Okay, so Mark is strategic account manager of Cognify in UK. He has held a number of commercial and management positions with application software and consultancy company, both in UK and internationally, always focusing on dealing with the challenges faced by asset-centric business like railways, of course. And Cognify is exactly focused on rail and mass transportation sector. Mark, hand over to you.
Good morning, thank you. At the moment, let me just move on to my agenda. I'm just going to take you through a quick introduction about who Cognify is. Then we'll talk about some of the challenges which Jules and Paolo have already spoken about with regard to managing incidents. And then I'll tell you a little bit about what we think technology may be able to do to answer some of the incidents. I know we've kind of shuffled out of line now, but we'll deal with any questions that anybody's got during the Q&A at the end. I think that's probably best. Paolo. A little bit about Cognify. Cognify is an international company that deals with incident management and security. Mostly in the rail sector, we are dealing with kind of physical security and also improvement of kind of operational safety as well as general safety. We've got about 310 employees. We're spread all over the world, and we work in the kind of video collection of IoT devices and incident management. So as Jules and Paolo have said earlier on, incidents happen. There's nothing you can do about incidents happening. They're a part of life if you're operating a railway line or a train company. And the traveling public kind of get to find out about these incidents all the time, and it has a bit of a negative effect on the perception of you as an operator. Public transport is in the news quite often, but often in the news for all of the wrong reasons. So the public is very aware of incidents happening in rail and mass transportation all of the time. The trick for kind of management is, what do you do about it, and what do you do to minimize the impact of it? Bad things happen, as we know, and as Nicholas said in his presentation earlier, they've classified things into kind of serious events and not so serious events. So in Cognify terms, we talk about those things as routine and crisis. So crisis events are usually scenario planned, very well rehearsed, very well documented, and they're things like bridge collapses and train accidents, etc., etc. The more usual ones that we get involved in managing are to do with kind of routine incidents. And these are the ones that affect you on a day-to-day basis, affect your operational performance as well as your safety, and often include results to sort of performance degradation, which may result in fines, etc. And they are things like willful damage, theft of materials, vegetation obstructions, trespasses on the track, livestock on the track, etc., etc. They happen, on a daily basis to most of the organisations we work with, and they're often referred to by our customers as death by 1,000 cuts. They're not particularly serious incidents in their own right, but taken together, they usually have a big impact on operational performance. That's just, for some reason, not gone into, let me just go back. So I do apologize, that's not got into the right mode. So as we can see, these incidents, you tend to have a low frequency of crisis incidents, a high frequency of kind of routine incidents. And apologies there, this hasn't shown in the right mode, but they do affect your kind of efficiency. They do add to your costs and risks. They do have a negative impact on your customers and compliance issues. And they do affect the credibility of the organization quite often. The prize is, what can we do about those incidents? So what Cognify try to focus on is the kind of three areas of the incident. And once again, the slide has got a bit corrupted here for some reason. And there are three areas where we look to improve incidents for people. One is in what's described as incident intake. So this is improving the notification of the incident, making sure that all of the people associated with the incident are notified in time. The second area is actioning the incident to completion. So making sure, particularly in a multi-agency approach, that the right people in the right organizations are sequenced to attend to the incident and deal with the incident in the quickest possible time. And then the other area is review and compliance, which tends to be have a heavier burden on organizations as we move forward. What can we do to automate that as much as possible so that compliance from external agencies particularly is automated. So our whole kind of raison d'etre in this area is to try and reduce the time it takes to understand what an incident is, take it on board, deal with it, and deal with all of the associated compliance. How do we do that? It comes into kind of 4 areas mainly. Getting the incident on board, so using technology, IoT devices, particularly video, access control devices, fire alarms, etc., so that we can take a multi-view of an incident and understand it as quickly as possible and understand the implications of it as quickly as possible. The second area, we look to help incident managers to deal with the incident by enriching the kind of information they have. So to give them more information about the incident as it's happening via video, associated maps with built-in kind of infrastructure, usually managing their kind of hierarchical and linear assets, so we can see exactly what the associated asset structure is, helping them with kind of any reference data that they need about land ownership, associated companies using the same track, and also any social media feed. Quite a lot of the companies that we work with are finding that social media is aware of some of their incidents before they are themselves and before they're dealing with them, which has got quite a big impact on your PR, particularly if people are tweeting that, you know, there are going to be roadworks associated with a bridge strike and you're not yet aware of the incident. It often has an embarrassing impact on the public relationship of the organization. The third area we try and help is enacting to clear up the incident. So notifying all of the people, as I mentioned in the previous slide, in external and internal agencies, so that be they security people, medical people, or executives of your organization and partner organizations as to the status and implications of the incident. And finally, as Nicholas mentioned earlier, helping with the data and insights. So what can we learn? How do we improve? And as importantly, what do we need to have for compliance of internal and external regulators? We work with many rail operators and mass transit operators right across Europe and also in the US and Asia. So if anybody, it was interesting to see the poll, to see that quite a lot of people don't believe that technology to support incident management is currently available, and not all that many people have invested in it. If you'd like to find out any more about this, or what any of our customers are doing about managing their incident and improving their response and clear up times, please get in contact with me. Hopefully we will share these slides with anybody that requests them after the event, and I'll leave you my details too. So thank you very much, and I'll hand you back.
Thanks a lot, Mark. I'm now asking to Jules whether Anne will be able to join us for her presentation.
Yes, I believe Anne is now with us. We'll try to, yes, there she is, I think.
Okay,
Yes.
Very good. So I will, we have no more polls, so I will introduce directly Anne Rosenbaum. She's team manager, as I said before, in the rail control room of ProRail. After several years of experience at French KLM, now has a more operational rail operation role at ProRail, trying to, let's say, deal with incidents and minimize the impact of them for passenger and cargo. Anne, now you have the floor for your presentation.
Yes, sorry about the delay. I had some technical problems, but I'm Anne. I'm the team manager of the operational control room rail, and I will talk about some different subjects regarding how we minimize the impact of delay and disruption for the passenger when traveling by train. Can you please turn on the next slide? Yes. So I will mention different subjects in this flow, like which actions do we take to minimize these disruptions, which helplines can we turn on to solve the disruption, and also how important the intake is to minimize the impact, and the web tool we use, which is called Spore Rep. Also, I'll mention something about the different stakeholders needed to solve the disruption. So imagine you are traveling by train, you are a passenger, and at a certain moment the train needs to stop because of a disruption. Think about, for instance, a defect of the train, or a switch or signal failure, or unfortunately, it happens a lot too, a collision with a person. And as a passenger, you are stuck in the train. That is, of course, something we do not want to happen. So the ambition of ProRail and NS, sorry, the next slide, please. Our ambition, so the ambition of ProRail and NS is to make sure that our passenger can move freely within 60 minutes, but for sure within 2 hours. And this looks like a quite simple process, but it's much more complicated than you will probably think of at the beginning. And I focus here on the processes of ProRail and NS. NS is our biggest carrier, because we have there some specific agreements how to solve these incidents. So to make sure a disruption of our passenger is minimized, we can make use of 4 different helplines, as you can see here in the picture. So based on history, it's determined per type of incident which 2 helplines needs to be put on automatically. So as an example, when the overhead line is stuck, you can imagine that a train which needs electricity is a no-go for evacuation because of the overhead line which is stuck. In this specific situation, we need to use the helpline bus. But we also see other helplines, for instance, helpline itself. And what do we mean by this? This is when the train can continue the travel by itself. For instance, because the driver had some contact with the help desk, and the train could continue the travel because of that the error or mistake was solved again. But besides these helplines, we can also use the helpline train, and this means that a new train, an evacuation train, can go next to the disrupted train, and in this way, passengers can evacuate by walking to the other train. And the last option we do have is an evacuation train who can tow away the disrupted train. So we always use 2 helplines to make sure we always have a plan B when needed. To make sure all stakeholders are informed about the incident as quick as possible, we use a system which is called Spore Rep. This is a web application. And an incident is always reported to the operational control center rail. And the centralist will do the intake with the reporter and make sure that all important information is asked and filled in a form, as you can also see in the screen. Questions that centralist will ask for sure is, for instance, what happened and what is the location of the incident. The centralist makes sure there is alarmed within the maximum of 5 minutes, and all stakeholders can log information about the incident in Spore Rep. So it's very transparent for all stakeholders. Also, there are some different roles in which the stakeholders can fulfill their specific tasks. So as you can see here, we have different roles. We have the different helplines, and in this Spore Rep system, these roles can fulfill their tasks. So incident fighters, for instance, are alarmed immediately. And these incident fighters will jump in their cars and go as quickly as possible to the incident location. They also have specific tools in their cars to be able to solve the incident as quick as possible. And there is one coordinator outside who is at the location, and he or she makes also sure that security arrangements are taken regarding the train traffic, which is still traveling according to the timetable and schedule. Because it is not allowed that trains drive at the location of the incident, then this can lead to any danger for passengers, emergency service like the police or the incident fighters. The coordinator makes sure he or she let know the other stakeholders at which location the evacuation train needs to be. At the operational control center rail, it's also monitored if all processes outside and inside are executed well, and if needed, action is taken to avoid any delay in this process. So with all these stakeholders, we make sure that the passenger experience as little disruption and delay as possible. So how do we minimize disruption? We can choose between 4 helplines, in which 2 are turned on automatically based on the type of incident. Besides, the intake is done and the centralist makes sure that there is alarmed within 5 minutes. The incident fighters go to the location as quickly as possible, and Spore Rep, our web-based application or tool, makes sure that stakeholders are informed immediately. And also different stakeholders are needed to solve this disruption. But what else do we do? So in addition to our system Spore Rep, we also have another application. It is called Smart Alarming. And this is an improvement we did because the incident fighters are located in different regions. But with this Smart Alarming, we do not look at the region anymore, but at the actual location. So incident fighters are alarmed based on the actual location, and this is integrated to our system Spore Rep. But also an important thing we do is to make sure that we prevent disruption. So we do have, for instance, at the Operational Control Center Rail, a department which is called Camera Surveillance. And these colleagues monitor the cameras of ProRail located at different crossings. There are also some smart triggers in these cameras. So the colleagues who are monitoring these cameras will get warned due these triggers if there is a person near a railroad crossing. And when there is a suspicious situation, the camera surveillance will contact the centralist at the Operational Control Center Rail immediately. They are located very close to each other. The centralist can then inform the train dispatcher to take some safety precautions, like that trains will drive with a lower speed, for instance. And our Operational Control Center Rail, I will call it for now OCCR, is in close contact also with the other control rooms, like the control room of the police. And due to this collaboration, we also make sure that incidents are solved much more quickly, or that incidents are avoided. The police will inform us, for instance, when persons are close to the railway, which will be a dangerous situation. So this was my story. Thank you for listening.
Thanks a lot, Anne. You put us really in the control room when telling us about it works and how it interacts with other players. So now we will start our panel discussion. I will ask all the speakers to go back with us. We have a lot of questions coming from the audience, so I will try to put them together by topic in order to deal a bit of everything. First, there is, let's say, several questions that are dealing with specific issues related to the topic of today, the incident management. Issues like resilience and climate change that was mentioned by Nicolas, so how to protect and to deal with that. But also more, let's say, more known situation, like how it works in the multimodal environment, how you deal with when you have to communicate with other systems, with other operators of other transport systems, and also how to take into account the separation between infrastructure and train operation. So is a word, as I say at the beginning, more complex. Anne already has explained a bit how they are interacting with other players at the control room level. But let's say, do you think there is something more that can be done in that respect to improve incident management, not just within the rail system, but also with the external world, and with a long-term view on forthcoming issues like climate change, that of course are involving a larger, when climate change impact take place, it will involve the full territory, not just the railway. So I will ask Frederick to start. Maybe from UIC perspective, you have already discussed about that.
Yeah, thank you, Paolo. This is really the tricky questions UIC would like to focus on during the next years. As you said, the railway system is interfacing with different partners which are known today between the railway undertakings and the infrastructure manager. Depending on whatever organization is in place, we know that I would say business continuity and resilience of the railway system is capacity to answer to the unknown and to the external aggressions. So this is why we are looking for making some work regarding a typical functional organization of any traffic control center, as I was explaining, from the long-term planning to the real-time answers from the railway environment. So, of course, this needs to make sure that the externalities and the interfaces external to the railway are in connection with this railway organization. So it means, for example, as you said, with the climate change, the weather forecasts, the any topic which could potentially or virtually aggress the railway activities needs to be taken into consideration on the reactive manner, but as well on the proactive and predictive manner. So this is why we are looking for making a ideal functional organization of any traffic control center from railway. But of course, in addition to that, we need to design and the use cases of the data which are to be used and be made available in order to optimize the resilience of the railway system. So this is why in parallel with that, depending on whatever architecture of the railway will be done, especially with the control command signaling system, we must make sure that the digital platforms which have to be developed and the interactions and the usage of data are allowing to go above the control command and signaling system, which is at the heart of the railway system, but taking into consideration every externality, and which are not.
Are you discussing with other association representing other modes of transport to deal with the multimodal, let's say, phase of that? There is any coordination? Some in the audience ask about also standards to have a common way to deal with incidents and also to interact.
So this is why we are making this in parallel with the actual activities which are ongoing in UIC regarding, the rail system data converging with a unique or maybe some formats which are dedicated to the railway. And we are developing what is called the ontology. So it means the way that we are going to use the data, depending on the format, but as well taking into consideration the railway format, to make sure that all these data are made in, I would say, in a comprehensive language from the railway, in order to be able to tackle with and to optimize the way we are answering to these disruptions. So it means that external data of railway are embedded within the railway organization and can be, I would say, translated in a format so that the responsible of railway are understanding and answering to this situation. So this is really parallel. With this functional organization, we are, of course, in parallel working with the people regarding, for example, the development of the specifications for future railway communication mobile system. We are dealing with this matter about the data format and the rail system model.
Thank you, Frederick. And Nicolas, from your perspective, you have already discussed about the role of infrastructure manager versus the operator. Are you also interacting with other players when there are disruption? Like if you have major disruption in the ferry system, are you aware of it? There is any let's say, or in the air transport, there is any established way to jointly deal with this kind of situation?
Well, the answer would be yes and no. We are very active on the different countries we are traveling on with other rail operators. We do have some contingency plans either in UK and also in France and Belgium, where we were able to find some workarounds, and when an operator can operate as a substitute from the other, then we do have some agreements enabling us to do so. And then we do have a lot of exchanges with the local authorities. This is true in UK, especially where there is a high level of integration through some resilience forums in London and Kent as well, where we have a regular chance to speak with fire rescue, with police, and with everything, which make us as a rail operator an actor among others to improve the continuity of not only of rail operations, but more generally of all the useful services to the public.
Thank you. Anne, in the Netherlands, the public transport system is, let's say, significantly coordinated. Are you interacting with other operators outside the railway world when there are incidents?
Yeah, so you have, of course, a separation between the company who is responsible for the rail itself, that is the company where I work for, Spore Rep, and carriers who are making use of this infrastructure. And at the OCCR, we are at one place. So our biggest carrier, NS, is also at the operational control center. And I think that that collaboration makes sure that we can solve incidents much faster.
And in case a line is completely blocked, so there is no passenger service, for instance, are you exchanging also with bus operators, with the other kind of players that can replace the train system?
Yeah, so when something happened like that, we use our web tool Spore Rep, so our carriers are immediately informed and they are also alarmed. But besides that, the carrier will have some agreements indeed with bus operations, and then the passengers can travel by bus. So we indeed have some contacts over there. Yeah.
Thank you. Mark, is technology enabling a better coordination within and outside the railway system dealing with incidents?
Yeah, one of the things that I notice is, and it was interesting looking at the polls, quite a lot of organisations seem to be hesitant to invest in incident management improvement technology because of fragmentation of infrastructure owners, rail operating companies, and multi-mode transport. The technology is not a barrier to any of that. The technology is there now, it's available, and multi-agency access is what goes on quite a lot in the US and in certain parts of Europe now with our customers. The difficulty seems to be is the management agreements for who accesses what information regarding incidents, and also the changing nature of relationships, particularly in the UK, where some of the rail operators are kind of franchised rather than being part of Network Rail. How that relationship works, will that relationship continue, seems to be a barrier to people kind of investing in technology to improve the outcomes. So it is an issue, I would accept, but it's not limited by the technology. The technology is flexible and able to, take care of those things now. They're more the management, as I said earlier, the management issues around it.
Thank you, Mark. Let's moving more on the practical side. So once the incident happened, the audience is asking how to properly control the sharing of information without generating many repetitive, for instance, phone calls or messages to various management level on one hand, and properly deciding what to share with the customer, and I would say also when share this to the customer. So I will start now from Mark. Have you, in your experience, seeing any best practice or good way to address this?
Yeah, it is a sensitive issue, and it varies from organization to organization. So one of the trickiest thing about implementing incident management technology is deciding on that workflow. And it usually requires a bunch of people to sit in a room and understand who needs to be communicated with, and also where they should be communicated with in the sequence of events that need to happen. The other thing, which is quite complex to work through, is quite a lot of incidents have what are described as sub-incidents. So there may be livestock on the track, which is a fairly simple incident, but it may be as a result of another infrastructure problem which has allowed that to happen. So you've also got to be able to manage the changing nature of incidents. An incident might start off as one thing and end up as something else, or it may end up as multiple incidents. So it is quite a complex piece of process planning to get that information right and the sequence of communications right. It can all be automated, it can all be done, but it does require some management effort to determine the process sequence.
Thank you. Frederick, have you discussed about this information flows issue in UIC?
Yes, indeed. And it's related with the works we are going to carry out with the functional organization of any traffic control center, and of course, embarking the competencies for resilience management and incident management. So this is focusing on the organizational aspects which have to be taken into account in order to be able to face any unknown event. So it is a matter of not only developing the scenarios and developing, the training organizations and the skills and competencies of staff, but it's as well in terms of organization, the possibility to be adapted depending on the situation. So it means it's a layer where the organizational and managerial parts are involved in this, I would say, work streams, to be able to face any unknown activity. So this is typically, yes, it's embarked within the work streams of UIC for this.
And Nicolas, about that, also there is a question whether you are using infotainment you have on board to share with customer information about incidents. So can you provide us your experience on that?
Yeah, sure. First, regarding flows of information, the question for us is very sensitive because our control room is not co-located with any of the IAM control center. There are too many IAMs. We have a single control room, so we can't be together in the same room with the infrastructure managers. So this is why we are relying a lot on the exchange tools we provide. And we have our own tool as well, which developed in-house. The issue was actually that during some significant disruptions, there were just too many phone calls, as someone asked, and and basically this was not information put under quality. So the core principle is that everyone in the business is able to have a live feed about which disruption is happening, how it is happening, and which are the reactions. And the customer information is defined at the level of control room so that it is unique, it is the same, which is propagated through the different channels, so that you don't have some announcements in a station and then you consult the Eurostar website, it's telling you something else. This is definitely what we don't want. Otherwise, passengers and customers tend to find we are not reliable enough. So this is why we are controlling that on the central level.
Okay. Anne, I have another question for you, which is about the division of responsibilities. So who take the decision at the end in case of incident? Who has the last word and who is just there to bring information, but at the end has to accept the decision taken?
Yeah, we do have a structure in which you have like a hierarchy, and it's very clear who has the end responsibility of what. So at the OCCR, we do have, for instance, a duty officer incidents. That person has the end responsibility of all incidents that happened in the Netherlands. So it's very clear. It's also very clear who has which tasks. So, for instance, in the system Spore Rep, it's not needed to log information free format. It's very clear who has which task to avoid indeed that there is unnecessary phone calls and so on.
Okay.
And the training is there to only log information which is fact-based.
Thank you. Just a quick also feedback from Nicolas. How it works for international operation? Who takes the decision at the end?
That's a good question. What we try to find out actually is that on international routes, infrastructure managers do not necessarily always communicate one with each other. So this is why, at the end of the day, as an operator, we are sometimes actually making this coordination. So when it comes about an incident which has some international consequences, like closure of the tunnel, for instance, it is up to the operator to define its tactics and then agree locally with each infrastructure how we are containing the incident in London, in Paris, or in Brussels and Amsterdam. So basically, I'd say that on international route, the operator still has a rather predominant role when it comes about non-safely critical related decisions about a specific infrastructure.
Okay. So I come now to the different question about technologies. So I will try to handle separately. There are several specific questions. First one is about 5G. Someone in the audience asked, even if it's not fully developed, what will be the impact of 5G on safety and operation? Frederick, I think you mentioned that. I will ask you to reply and then Mark. So what do you think?
We would like to see the 5G having a so huge positive impact in terms of safety and performance of the railway. And this is why, in addition to the functional organization of traffic control center, what we are looking for making in UIC is top 5 use cases of the 5G for rail in the next years. So, for example, any video, any audio, any data coming from sensors or IoT, thanks to the 5G, should be made available in a dedicated, I would say, time and dedicated format, so that the railway traffic control center can optimize either the answers to incidents or real-time tabling or decision-making. So this is really the focus of UIC is to work on the top 5G use cases. And these top 5 use cases will be, of course, decided by the operations sector within the UIC, who is representing the collaboration of chief operations officers to say what we would like to see as the best use case for being developed for the 5G for rail. And I'm sure it will be linked with the video usage and audio usage and sensors data usage, of course.
Thank you, Mark.
If I take only a simple example, it means any camera on board a driving cab could be used in order to deliver so many informations related with the, of course, description management, but in addition to that, many use cases, for example, the infrastructure referential or the positioning of certain topics on the network, etc., etc. So there are many use cases, but we will work on the top 5 use cases thanks to the 5G.
Thank you, Mark. What do you think about that?
Yeah, sure. There is an enormous appetite in the rail industry to put more information, particularly sophisticated asset information and video tutorials and safety information in the hands of remote operators. Remote operators are often responding to sites that are miles or kilometers from anywhere, and there's usually limited bandwidth. 5G will enable us and other technology companies to put more information in the hands of first responders more quickly, which will improve incident management response by a huge percentage. So it's a hugely exciting development. The customers that we work with are very excited about what 5G may be able to do for them. But the biggest area is information to responders and giving them lots of information quickly.
On that respect, what do you think? There are, again, more than one question. Someone mentioned drones as a possibility, as an alternative way, let's say, to get more information. Frederick has mentioned equipment put on the rolling stock. You can have sensor along the lines that, of course, are interesting, but needs to be maintained and calibrated. So what is your view on that?
My view is the more sensor information and kind of camera information that we can access, the faster we can respond. Train manufacturers are already loading trains with lots and lots of sensors for things like door pressure, pressure of kind of wheels on rolling stock, so that they can deal with kind of predictive and preventative maintenance. It's only a matter of time before we start using that information for predictive kind of incident management. So, heading off incidents before they actually happen, or minimizing what that incident will be before it really develops into anything serious. So I am in full support of harnessing all of that sensor information and VMS information as quickly as we can. And 5G will just help us to do it. It's an enabling tool. It's no more than that. It will capture more information and put it in the hand of responders more quickly.
Anna, what do you think about that? And what is ProRail planning in terms of improving the quantity and quality of information? Which technology are you considering? You have to unmute. Maybe Frederick, meanwhile, can you provide us your view on that? Anne is back.
Oh, no, thanks.
Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Which technologies are you planning to deploy on the network to improve the quantity and quality of information? The audience mentioned drones, other sensors. What is the plan?
I agree with Mark that the sensoring is very important. At ProRail, we do also have some test trains, for instance, and they also have sensors, and then you can know the condition of the rail. So it's very important to already register where there can be potential damage to actually prevent the incidents. So yeah, and as I said before, we also use the cameras. You can also use data to know at which locations the camera should be. So data is very important.
Okay, thank you, Frederick.
May I add something? Yes, this is coming to my presentation regarding, the data sharing, the data owner. In a systemic approach, what UIC is looking at, it's maybe possibly to make every commercial train, every train which is running and using the network, being able to deliver some data to the infrastructure manager so that everybody all together in a systemic approach, we optimize and use the best way the data which are made available. So somehow every train in the future should become an inspection train or even a provider of data to the system. So either for the railway undertaking for his own purposes, but as well for the infrastructure manager to make it optimization of the usage of the network. So this is where you see the importance of this question, data owner and data user, in a systemic approach. Even if the organization makes separations between infrastructure managers, sailors, and railway undertakings, we must put in place a framework where this optimization can be achieved.
Thank you, Frederick. Thanks to all the speakers. I think we have finished our time. We have more questions to be answered. There was a lot of interest from the audience, but unfortunately, we are at the end of our webinar. Just a few remarks on my side. We have seen very clearly how important is the topic we're discussing today, how central is in railway performances towards the customers and towards the full community, I would say. And is seriously taken by, let's say, considered by both railway undertakings like Eurostar and infrastructure manager like ProRail. There is best practice sharing, coordination effort with such a systemic approach Frederick is mentioning, addressed by UIC, but we have also technology solution, Mark has shown, that can help a lot because we have specific issues that are complex to be solved. We have, of course, the need of more sophisticated asset information, continuously updated to know how the system is working and the potential future disruption as well. We need connectivity, 5G can improve that. We need to properly manage the information flows in a way that is consistently shared across stakeholders and customers. And probably where we are a bit, let's say, less advanced in a way to look this from a broader mobility perspective, not within the railway world only, but also with the other modes of transport, because at the end of the day, cargo and passengers should move from one place to another, regardless for the solution. And in many cases, disruption are crossing the impact between railways and the other systems. So thanks again. Thanks to IRS and Cognify for organizing this webinar, and thanks to all the speakers, and I hand over to Jules for the conclusion.
Thank you very much, Paolo, and thank you to all the speakers. And I think, there was so much thing to cover. I think 90 minutes probably wasn't long enough to discuss. There's a lot of questions coming in from the audience. So thank you very much to the audience members and to the speakers for this debate today. I think we've learned a lot about the importance of information and data, having the right access to the right data very quickly, sharing the right data with all the stakeholders and passengers as quickly as possible. So I think we've made a lot of notes on how to handle incidents today. Just to give you some information about future events. So we have a few more webinars coming up in the next few weeks. So next one is actually next week, 25th of October, on train technology 2030. So we talked a little bit about how connected the trains are these days, creating a connected rolling stock ecosystem of the future. So we have speakers from Brain Creators, Passengera, and Advantech. And Paolo will also be, in fact, you'll be speaking, presenting this time, not moderating, I believe. So this is coming up next week. And then we have 2 additional sessions before the end of the year. So at the beginning of November, building resilience into rail supply chain operations and identifying the right data to predict and mitigate rail supply chain risks. So we'll be talking about supply chain for across 2 sessions. We have speakers from Rail Baltica, Supply on Arriva, and moderated by Deloitte partner. So we have these 3 webinars coming up. Do sign up. They're all free to participate, but the places are limited. So do sign up today. They're all available to sign up from our website. And an advance notice about our annual summit taking place in February. And it looks, by the look of it, it looks like we can hold it physically. And there are a lot of events already taking place physically. It will be in Berlin in February next year, the 11th edition of our International Railway Summit, once again supported by UIC, International Union of Railways. We have a focus on innovating rail for people, planet, and prosperity. So we're looking at 3 types of sustainability: social, environmental, and economic sustainability. So do join us for that. If you have any questions, do get in touch with us. And finally, we've recently launched a new awards, International Sustainable Railway Awards, once again in association with UIC. So we're looking to promote, recognize and promote the efforts that rail operators and infrastructure managers are making in making the planet a better place for people to live in, and in terms of economic sustainability as well. So we're looking at promoting these values. These are available for rail operators and infrastructure managers to apply. It's free to enter, and the application deadline is on the 12th of November. It's only 25 days to go. So do check this out. If you can Google International Sustainable Railway Awards, you'll find us. The presentation ceremony will be at the same week, in the same week as the summit in Berlin on the 17th of February. So do check out our website. We have a multiple number of categories where you can submit your projects and initiatives to be considered. So do check this out on our website as well. So, so once again, thank you very much to all the audience members, and thank you to our sponsor Cognify for making this webinar possible today. And of course, thank you to the speakers, Frederick Hein, Nicolas Barjules, and Rosenbaum, Mark Risseldale, and the moderator, Paolo Guglielmetti, once again. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good afternoon and goodbye.
Goodbye, thank you.